how do I strike the balance between letting them know where I stand and letting them figure things out and being involved and being invested and actively creating? How do I find the balance in that? So how do I find that balance? How do I strike that balance between letting it unfold on its own and trusting the outcome and being committed and engaged and invested? I think that being committed and engaged and invested has to do with how you show up in relationship with the person in real life in real time, right? So it has to do with the things you say to them, the questions you ask, the needs you express, the things you ask for, the being interested, the wanting to know about them, wanting to find out things, in the thoughtful actions you take, in the gestures you make, right? Like these are the ways that you get engaged and invested in a relationship, right? It's in the ways that you relate with someone in real life in real time when they're right in front of you, or when you're on the phone with them, or when you're writing an email to them, right? But those are the moments you invest with them. It's when you're actually interacting with them. Other than when you're actually interacting with them, the work is mostly on yourself, right? On soothing, on being patient, on trusting, on clarifying your needs, on clarifying your wants, on figuring out how to express that and when to express that. I've found most of the time when you charge in, like, we need to have a talk and we're gonna sit down and we're gonna hash this out and we're gonna figure it out, most of the time that's misguided. Now, look, again, if there was something that was like a deal breaker or something that was like an egregious offense, or that was like it needed to be addressed, it might be appropriate to say, listen, I just found out about something, you and I need to talk about it right now. Like that might be appropriate. Aside from those kinds of extreme situations, generally the developing of a relationship doesn't require a lot of, we're going to talk about this, we're going to hash this out. Most of it can come up very organically. I'll give a couple examples here because I want to clarify this and I know this is an important question. So when I was dating my wife, we talked every single night on the phone from day one, from like our first few dates, and then we talked every single night on the phone. I called her every single night. I mean, she might have called sometimes, but for the most part, I called her every single night. And she answered the phone every single night and she was receptive. I wanted to talk to her. She wanted to talk to me. She didn't have to ask me to call her. I called her on my own. I didn't have to ask her to pick up the phone. She was waiting for my call because she was looking forward to it. That was very natural. It was very, very natural, right? Neither one of us had to force that. Now, let's say you're in a situation where you would like to talk to someone every night, but it's not happening naturally. They're not just picking up the phone and calling you every night. Okay, well, this doesn't mean that you need to charge in and say, listen, we need to talk because I want someone who talks to me every night. And if you're not going to talk to me every night, then this relationship isn't going to work. Okay, that's not the way to do it. The way to do it is to wait for like a genuine, like heartfelt moment with that person. Maybe it's on your next date or maybe it's the next time they call. But wait for a moment when you're really connecting. Right? And when the connection is happening naturally. And that would be the moment for you to say to them, I really love it when we connect like this. And I often feel like it's so great when you and I connect like this, but then there's also a lot of space in between. And I feel like it'd be really nice if we could connect like this more often. Like what would you think about if we just made 10, 15 minutes to talk every night? Would you be up for that? Right? So now there are a couple elements here. One, this came up naturally. Okay, you didn't charge in and say, we need to talk. It came up naturally. It came up organically. It came up in a moment of authentic connection. So you weren't forcing the connection. You weren't trying to make the connection. It came up naturally. The connection was already there. And now in that moment of natural, authentic connection, you were vulnerable. You said, this is what I want. This is what I like. This is what I enjoy. This is what I want more of. And then you also made a specific request. How would you feel if we made like 10, 15 minutes to talk every night? Now, those are a few different elements, right? Some key elements there was being vulnerable, vulnerably expressing what you want, making that request, letting it come up organically, not forcing it, right? Like those are such important things that you just like, you will move a relationship forward so naturally when you do it in that way. You will also likely be very attractive to that person when you do it in that way. And when you do it again, trying to push it or force it, or you create a lot of hardship. You create a lot, it feels like work. It feels like, and this person always wants more and it's never enough. And you create a lot of that when you're not thriving on the moments of natural connection and allowing those to expand, and rather you're trying to push someone to give you more. It just doesn't create the same energy. It doesn't create the same feeling. And here's what's really beautiful about this approach is that as you're navigating this approach, in all the moments when you would have charged in to try to take control of the relationship and let's talk it out and make sure I can get what I want here, right? In all the moments where you would have done that, you are instead learning to self-soothe, learning to be patient, learning to let things unfold, learning to wait, and see what happens. So I think there's so much value in developing that patience, developing that internal strength. Thank you so much for being with me today, and I'll see you back here next Tuesday. Take care. Bye, everybody.